Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another set of matches here. We're continuing the set we actually already had. And here we have the Shambler rolling Terran again. So, yeah, he's clearly going to be typing in this particular set. The typing of the Shambler, the Typler. So, yeah, what he's going through here is the 6 stages of grief or whatever it is. I actually don't remember how many stages there are. But it doesn't really matter because he's going to be Terran, and maybe he can get some action done. I would like to inform you guys that since the last cast over was recorded, I did fix the rally bug. So we'll probably see that for a couple more cast overs since we're still going through a bit of a back catalog. But we're looking at the the current patch or whatever. We actually do have at least a bandage fix where it just clears the rally point display if the unit is not visible. And it's actually pretty cool because it clears it for if you have, like, even if you're a witness or an ally and you're selecting it, or, like, you have vision of both the structure or whatever, right? So, like, really this is for witness mode only. It still clears it because it's checking the visibility of the structure that has the rally point to the unit that is the target. So if that's not visible, yeah, that's a case where it 100% just gets cleared. So it's pretty nice. As far as I know, there's no issues with it, no concerns with it or anything. We have a Huracan first here. I respect it, actually. And so we might actually see a demonstration of what we're talking about here if Shambler tasks his rally onto the worker. And he's not going to. Now, if neblime was paying attention, which I believe he was, he will know that it is indeed an Ahmed first. And I believe this is the last medium-length game that we have, where we have 2 more short-length games afterwards. So we should expect this one to go, at least into the double-digit minute count or something. Now, neblime is going to go ahead and get owned by pathing. We love to see owned by pathing. This is still Hellstone, by the way, as far as the map is concerned, and a map that has a bugged tile here, and repetitive tiles here, and repetitive tiles here, and no, I'm not going to do that forever. But I like this play, because, honestly, this is a bit of a spooky play, right? You're not necessarily expecting this, but at the same time, he's done pretty well to defend himself, and yeah, that Ahmed will go down if he's not careful. He did kill a larva, though. That's kind of big. I was not expecting that for some reason. But yeah, it absolutely can kill larva. I mean, you run the armor, so it makes a lot of sense. Now, if neblime was, a bit more concerned about this, he could have obviously picked off the Huracan with the Skither Core and then killed the Maverick, because the Skither Core is not going to die to one Maverick. But he has forced out, early military units, which I do like. So Shambler is in a position to do something pretty well over here. His Watchdog is under construction, should be up momentarily, even if the Skither Cores arrive between then and now. We see 1 kill on this Droleth, which is hilarious. And yeah, again, I mean, the Huracan didn't really get too much done, but you appreciate the psychological torment of facing down none other than Ahmed himself. Here's a Wraith. I think that will have been... Yeah, it's spotted. He's definitely following it. So we'll see what happens with that. And neblime taking an expansion and an in-base macro hatch afterwards. And he's going to go ahead and drop a Spraith. So his worker count is obviously less than the Shambler's, since he's had to, build up the Kagrant in order to get some anti-air defense, as well as obviously the Hatcherosks and such. But he can obviously power, up to a higher worker count if need be. Here comes the Wraith as well. Just going to go ahead and get a scout off. Neblime's forces are in a good position. This Spraith is not yet finished, so, maybe 1 worker can be picked off here. Shambler's flubbing the micro a little bit, but, yeah, it's just going to end up getting burrowed there. Maybe there's a chance that he picks off the worker if he doesn't screw up the micro with that. And there's even an Ovaleth here to scout out. So, that's pretty good. I mean, I almost feel like the double Ovaleth is a bit much, but you can at least have 1 Ovaleth patrolling the 2 bases that you have, and the other one can sit in the, over the middle path here, and that looks like, actually, he's just going to use them more offensively and not really concern himself with potential mass Wraith play, because he did see a second stockade coming up, and not a second star pad. I think that's probably one of the reasons why he feels that way. Now, I don't know what this path is. It looks like maybe that was just a mistake by the Shambler. He's going to go ahead and move his units around. But yeah, I like the... I like the way that this is being approached by neblime as far as like maintaining map control and such. However, that Bio Squad is pretty spooky, and there's only a couple of Skither Cores on the way. Yeah, actually that Bio Squad will easily step on 3 or 4 Skiths, especially with the added oomph of the Wraiths. So There goes that Ovaleth. That's not too bad of a pickoff. You know, it's expensive and it does cost gas. So this actually could be a pretty quick game. You know, I'm kind of surprised this was marked as a medium because this looks like it could end anytime soon. So we might actually have our first fast match and certainly our first Terran victory of the set. Remember that Shambler has gone random, apparently, and has just gotten Terran every time. So that's Blizzard PRNG, you know. The Hydras are out, but obviously they are going to have to chase down this army. A lot of these Mavericks are being, you know, tickled, and the Wraiths are obviously not in a good position to help. So it looks like one Skither Core went two Hydralisks went down, and the Wraiths are not in with the rest of the fight. They even reveal themselves with an unfortunate move there. And they'll stick around just to kill off one of the Hydras, and it looks like 2 workers died, or no, just 1 Droleth ended up going the way of the Dodo. And there's 4 Skiths and some, 4 Wraiths, some of which are wounded. We have a whole host of Cyprians. I'm not sure if they are going to be the thing to pick versus the Hydrith, but, you know, it could be fine. And yeah, they're even going to get a Skither Core for their troubles. Another Ministry going down. One of them already completed, and a 3rd Stockade being added. So I'm getting mixed signals from what Shambler wants to do here. He's trying to expand. He's trying to spend his money. He's trying to, you know, go for maybe the macro play. But it takes a lot of APM and focus and such to set up these bases. There's some really bug tiles over here, by the way. And, you know, it feels to me like he definitely could do a little bit better in that sense, as far as he's setting up the Lodestone now. He's going to have that Mason be picked off, but he can just send the Cyprians over to defend the Watchdog and, like, reestablish control over that area. And I think because Neblime sees that there's... Oh, he might have even spotted it out over here, judging by that corpse that looks like it was a Skither Core. I was going to say that maybe he was in a position where... he anticipated that the army movement would be coming because there was no army movement to respond to that structure, right? The fact that he was under attack and stuff. But anyway, we'll see what this particular engagement is going to look like. I think I narrowly favor Neblime's standing force here. The Wraiths can be deadly, and obviously can pick off some stuff. It looks like they're going to get a free Izira Core due to a bad rally. And there's one of the softened up Hydras. Now, obviously, the Wraiths buying a lot of time for the Cyprians. It's kind of weird. You wouldn't necessarily think, oh yeah, let me use Wraiths as my front line. But yeah, at this point, we obviously have reinforcements coming. The Cyprians are a bit split, and the Izira Corps pops out to defend these Hydras. So you definitely think to yourself, okay, that's a big deal. Ovaleth does scoop up a Kagrant, so he's going to go ahead and drop that somewhere. Maybe, I don't think that's an offensive thing per se, but he might be looking to establish like a, an outpost somewhere or whatever. Looks like another Wraith ended up getting owned. Yeah, okay, he's going to drop it over here at the ramp and just start to use that. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a more commonplace occurrence, by the way, that the idea that you can, relocate your static structures and then, set up a defensive thing there. That's definitely a utility that the Ovaleths provide that you don't normally see. And here's an interesting thing. Yes, Blizzard did really make it so that you can make this blend using the default, way that you make stuff, right? So you do have to manually correct that every time. Those are the inner corners of the dirt cliff. Love that. It kind of reminds me of like the raised jungle and it being totally foobar as well. But enough about Lard. We are looking at a lot of Ahmeds, actually. So the next attack should definitely be decisive in favor of Shambler as far as, generally dealing with stuff. But, Neblime is looking pretty comfortable. And so even if, this first attack that he's going to be going for here, he's actually withdrawing already. Where is he heading towards? I'm not sure where he wanted to go. That seems like it was another mistake. But the Bio Army is... I don't think he's going to have vision of it. He might not even spot it, yeah. Maybe he's... Okay, he is actually going to pursue, so he must have seen a couple of units. But, now that all the Ahmeds are not in the front, so they got to get cycled back. And there's not really that many units sitting over here to defend. There is the Lodestone over there. And here come the Ahmeds to try to surround the army. So yeah, this should be a decisive victory for Shambler. He is losing and bleeding out a couple of his Ahmeds as they try to get into position. And the Mavericks are going to stim forward to try to pursue. So a couple of these Hydras should fall. A lot of them are softened up, though, and obviously it takes a second for them to regenerate. Meanwhile, we have a Wraith over here. It's going to get tickled to death by the Izira Corps. Didn't get a chance to finish off that Droleth because it wasn't on, focus target. So it was just sort of, pathed over there. And the Skither Corps watching in the south. Ovaleth watching over here. This is a pretty good spot because it obviously is protected from low ground vision if you go there. So, again, Neblime showing good game sense there. And we're still not seeing an adaptation to use Vestry units. You know, the last match we did see, the second game of the previous cast over, one of the things that we saw at a Shambler was that he went for a lot of like work on like mech and stuff with clerics, and it didn't end up working out because he had a smaller army than he really needed. He's actually getting the tech up faster than his opponent this time, so if he's able to scout into this, which I don't think he will be judging by the number of Izira cores, he might see that and be like, oh yeah, okay, we're doing all right as far as the macro game is concerned, at least in terms of tech pacing. And looking at all of these Zerg units, you know, each Izira core is 150 minerals, right? Like, you're looking at all those, you realize, okay, I've really forced my opponent to actually spend his money this time around. So that's a big deal. It does feel like Shambler could have more, you know, focus on his macro and such. He is adding some fulcrums now and definitely needs to think about like relocating some of these stockades so that they're out of the way. It looks like he'll be going up to 3 fulcrums to take advantage of the Atlas, although the timing is a bit slow. Skither Core over here is not going to be too long for this world. In fact, it mostly just reminds Shambler to check his base. And I guess the one thing that's a bit spooky is if Neblime attacks up into this section, you know, it's really only Hurricanes. Like, there's not really that much over here. Meanwhile, attacking down into this, I mean, he can easily bust this lodestone. And now his forces on the back end here, you know, they'll be cleaned up by Ahmed, but it's a little bit harder to call that fight super decisive. Because, like, look at all the Hurricanes that ended up having to give their lives for the cause, thanks to all the Izira cores that stayed alive, right? It looks like maybe... No, it doesn't look like any Masons ended up dying, but there's not really that many over here, right? Neblime still stands with about a 20-worker advantage, and that is pretty significant for obvious reasons. Getting up to his Tier 2 static defenses, getting some Larvosks, getting a Mutath. So he's going to be going up into... I think it might be like Muta-Zeth at this point. Not 100% sure. We have a 4th base excuse me, starting for Shambler, but again, his natural and his 3rd are not actually saturated right now. We don't see any capping of the geysers. His main seems adequately saturated, but just mostly going after the fact that he's actually depleting them. And he's starting to add some sentinels. He's got a proper anchor over here. And, you know, in a way, losing that lodestone might be a good thing, because now he can add a quarry for Taluses or something like that if he wants to. He does have a lodestone down here with added sentinels. That's going to be a big deal as well. And is indeed adding Palladiums to 2 out of his 3 Fulcrums. So we should be seeing some either Phalanxes or Madrigals. I want to say Phalanxes would be pretty good versus what Shambler has seen hitherto, but the switch into Muta-Zeth obviously means that you want Madrigals more so than anything, thanks to their impeccable crowd control and multi-target. There is a 4th base on the way already for Neblime. He could just start distance mining. Looks like he's going to do that. Maybe set up like a gas cap or whatever, since he's already capped his geysers in the 3 bases. Oh, 2 out of the 3 bases that he already has. And just kind of burrow some Zeths in a few spots, and otherwise try to do his best to occupy different areas with units, just to keep tabs on his opponent. I mean, when this 4th base is complete and it lifts off somewhere, if it takes this area, that's going to be easy to pressure, especially with the access to mutas, which he is starting to train now. And also if he goes anywhere else. I mean, like air mobility and such, right? That's a big deal. So we do have Madrigals out, the Captaincy. Man, this base layout looks really, really rough for Shambler. And he's adding a Palladium over here. So he needs to lift this Fulcrum off and this Stockade off. And even then, his pathing out of his base is going to be really awkward no matter what. I would even move the Atlas like back here or something. I mean, I guess then you can't probably add a Fountainhead or whatever. But yeah, you know, the base is very small, it feels like. The main is very small. All right, so the Vorpal Cores charge on in. If I mean, obviously that's going to reveal Tier 2, but we'll see what the response is here. We do have Cyprians in that anchor, so that does need to be accounted for, and maybe try to adjust his spread as a result. He has enough mutas to charge in that it will be easy enough to burst. And the Madrigal, there is 1 Madrigal, but it needs to actually respond to the threat. So even with very minimal micro and losing a lot of mutas, at this point the Zerg War Machine is up and running with 3 fully saturated bases, the 4th one on the way. You know, there's no gas on the 3rd, but that's not really super necessary for mutas. They're more of a mineral-heavy unit in CMBW. And, yeah, I mean, okay, we've got Madrigals pumping, and you did indeed have that Ministry bit made, but, you know, what are you really going to do with it, right? You're not actually using it. So even though he's got 4 Ministries, he's really only mining off of 2 bases right now, and, you know, neither of them have capped geysers, so, like, his gas level is going to be pretty low, and Madrigals are fairly gas-intensive. So it feels to me like Shambler, you know, the writing is kind of on the wall here. He's finding it difficult to scale up. Now, if he can maybe get, you know, more Trojans out and start dropping Madrigals into some of these bases, I mean, I still feel like the Tier 2 defenses will make short work of them, but, like, look at this. He's even got a Scorchwrath already set up here. So, yeah, it feels to me like this could be a quick 3-0 set here, where Shambler's Terran is not quite equipped to deal with it. I mean, he tried Ahmed. But I feel like if he... Yeah, I think if he's going to take games off of Neblime Z as a Terran, he kind of needs to do it before you hit Tier 2. But maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe he'll prove me wrong. He's going to go ahead and load up a deployed Madrigal. He's just relocating them because his base layout is so messed up. Oh, man. No, ain't that sad. No, he's going to get the idea to maybe go for a drop, but, I mean, when he sees what Neblime has and all of the units and all of the, you know, it is just going to be... Oh, he's added 2 Matravel nests. That's clearly a mistake, but that's okay. He's ahead enough that he probably doesn't need to worry too much about that. And, yeah, you know, this is like double tech. You know, this is making sure that if you lose it once, you don't lose it in both places. Never mind that it's in the same spot. Oh, my God. Shambler's base layout really hurts my soul. He's got a bunch of Ahmeds. The Trojan does unload the Madrigal, and unfortunately for him, gets absolutely slapped. I think there's like a Bactylisk. I'm wondering how... Was there a Matrolith somewhere? I don't know. That Trojan didn't end up doing too much. See you later, Bactyl. Bactyl boy. Now, Ahmed is pretty adept at dealing with stuff like Vorbs, so you will see these units melt, and he's even going to have to go ahead and cancel. This is the least cost-efficient way to battle Ahmed, but don't worry, here's some mutas. Now, if he's smart... Oh, he's not smart. I was going to say he could charge forward and kill that Droleth, so he has to send another Droleth just to delay the base. You know, Ahmed wasn't going to do anything running away from the mutas in the first place, but doesn't end up working out. That's actually the most cost-efficient thing that Shambler's been able to do so far, it feels like. At least since the Tier 2 acquisitions, right? And there was indeed a couple Matroleths. I was wondering how the Trojan got ensnared, and I was pretty sure there was like some Matroleth pathing around and affecting the Bactylisk sort of incidentally. But either way, we do have Ahmed as the early warning system. Early warning Ahmed. Starports being added, more ministries being added. What are you going to do with those ministries, buddy? Ahmed trying to hold the front. It's working out, actually, so far. Starport will eventually be interrupted because of that Mason being slapped. And it looks like this bottom flank is not going to be too effective. Obviously, the Bactylisks are here to try to lay in some more damage, but there are Phalanxes out and Sentinels out, so they're not going to be too effective either. There are the attempts to add more Vilgaleths to the mix, but the Matroleths are obviously a little bit vulnerable here. And one of them even goes down incidentally there due to the Madrigal piercing. So this was not super cost efficient for Neblime, but again, he's up to 5 bases now. Well, he will be when he starts saturating that. His opponent is still not mining from a 3rd base, and it's just one of those things where he's, you know, maybe he was mining over here. I don't see any corpses, though. I think maybe that was just on all fronts being overwhelmed. And at this point, Neblime's just being, like, not very effectively annoying, but maybe somewhat annoying. He might actually lose his Madrigals if he's not careful. So, definitely needs to watch out for that. They're both 1 hit away, so... Will they do it? Oof! Ah, the other one stays alive. Or does it? Ooh! Owned. Yeah, some Zets are going to charge in. But look at the top flank. There's so many coming in from the top rope. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of Madrigals here, too. It feels like he needs to go into like, Protathalor or, you know... some sort of like durable unit like Zorius or Vilgoricors or something. He doesn't have any Matroleths here to like replenish the stock. So, I mean, the Zeths and Vorbs actually did get some damage dealt and distract some of the Madrigals and such. But it feels to me like definitely could have been a bit more effective in that sense. Something I was thinking about with the Madrigal is that maybe when deployed, it could have like a limited cone, like based on where the turret faces, is the only places that it can shoot. And I would have to like adjust the model or something to reflect that. That could be kind of interesting. I don't know how you like. You'd have to basically micro it to like face the target that you wanted, and then if that target dies, then it's a little bit awkward. So I don't know. It might make the unit too much of an APM sink, but that was one of the ideas that I had to change it up. Obviously, ideally, it would just have a small delay before firing each missile, but the technical ways of implementing that are very, very difficult. Actually, it sounds like a simple change, but in actuality, you need to store like an array of all of the different targets, and then like update that every time or whatever. I don't know, like loop through all of the targets in the area. Maybe you could just like tag them and say like, oh yeah, they've had this unit or something. I don't know. It would be very expensive from a memory management standpoint. It would not be very performant. So we're considering we're trying to keep the scale pretty high, in CMBW, at least like the ceiling of the scale. That's definitely something that we want to avoid. All right, starports and mantles are now being added. And obviously up here we do have yet another ministry being tickled. I think this one was repaired at some point. The Madrigal is going to go ahead and try to save the day. Yeah, get that Zeth. All right. A little bit of an inaccuracy on the Madrigal. I'll probably have to restrict the facing angle a bit more. Hey, he's got an Apostle! Check that out. We haven't seen that in a while. He only ends up getting one Muta. And he's going to walk away, so the Muta is going to eventually decay. Well, he's trying to get his Apostle out of dodge. It's getting body blocked by a Mason. That Mason's a hostile player, you know? Here comes the next onslaught. I mean, it's not really that many Zerg, actually. But most of the Madrigals were relocated. And does he have many other units? He's got a lifted captaincy. He's not really training anything from that south base. Yeah, I think at this point, Shambler is feeling a little bit overwhelmed. But even so, his, you know, this ministry over here for his third base, we'll call it now, because this has been converted into his natural, has obviously had some trouble. And will be put down, it seems like. I hate Terran. I have to work that into the thumbnail, obviously. That's a pretty good one. And, yeah. Unfortunate for the guy, man. I mean, I think he would have had a better time if he had a better base layout, but he can't really have a great base layout on this map because of the structure. And he made the map. So really, he has only himself to blame. It's so funny to me to see, like, the races that people are really specialized at, because, like, you know, it feels like Terran is my worst race too, so I kind of like sympathize with Shambler in that sense. Dude, it couldn't kill the Rilla Car. It was too, I wasn't powerful enough. Yeah, hunt down the fucking Matrolettes, get him. You're not fast enough. Look at this. Is that 7th base? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's only the 6th base. Only, by the way. And he's not got any anti-air. But he is at tier 3. He's building ultra cores. You know, when those hatch, if Shambler happens to be paying attention, that's going to be pretty bad. He's got the Gezkath already. Dude, this man is sitting on the max tier tech. Going up to the Tozrel Haunt. Dude, come on, man. Tell me that you really wanted to see some tier 3 Zerg. Shambler's just not been... He's so poor, man. He's not been able to really do anything. He's adding these mantles. He's getting some Durandals. He's adding more Valkyries from the starports. Adding another ministry yet again. He's got some idle workers here. He's got an idle ministry here. But here come the Ultra Cores, boys. Where'd those Valks end up? Did they end up dying? One of them's down here. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Maybe the other one got slapped by something. Bactilisk's on the way. Here come the Ultra Cores. He could have kept that landed, honestly, for a wall, but it looks like he gave it a move command or something. He's trying to navigate his base so that he can get the Durandals to the front line. I don't think it's working out too well. All right, how many Ultra Cores do we have? I mean, that's a lot of Ultra Cores. That's 9 of them, so how are we going to handle that? What's the play, Shambler? Trying his best, but the Durandals are gone, so there's no more armor rend to make the Madrigals do more damage to the Ultra Cores, which is what you would have wanted in that particular engagement. And the replay has finished without a GG yet again. Shambler can type, his keyboard functions, but he can't type GG. It's just not possible for him. All right, so that is indeed going to be how that matchup closes out, with Neblime going up to 3-0 in the set. But we do have 2 faster games on their way, so maybe we'll be able to see Shambler redeem himself and end, you know, 3-2, still losing the quote-unquote best of 5, but being capable of saying that he defended his honor. We'll see. Welcome. Yes, we are indeed on to the next game. I don't know who that guy was drinking coffee and starting the wrong replay, but here we are. We have Neblime against the Shambler. And look at this! He's Zerg now! Well, surely this will be a better match. And we are on to the shorter games, so expect the rest of this one to go sillily, I would hope. It may be not silly, maybe it'll be epic, and it'll be, like, well played from both teams. But as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, we do have the Shambler losing out 3 of the 3 games that have been played so far, and that's 3. But don't worry, he'll have an opportunity to redeem himself. We can imagine he's now officially practicing for Ascension number 4, where he will be Zerg here. And yeah, I think I'm not sure what the changes were to this map after the games here were played, but obviously this is him sort of like testing out a new map and stuff. And I appreciate people making new maps, even if they don't end up being competitively viable, or you know they don't end up making the cut for whatever reason, and they just end up in like the non-standard folder or the retired folder eventually when you know people are done with the concept and they've moved on. That's like up to the map makers when they decide it's retired. And yeah, we get to see some pretty cool stuff either way. Obviously, we get to see Shambler typing. It's always a good one. So we got Lemon Zerg and Beastra Brown Zerg. So Lemon is, of course, neblime. Well, I guess that is a silver lining. He's figured it out. Well, he's also against a more macro-oriented Zerg, right? Not necessarily one that would go in for the kill at Tier 1 or Tier 2 even, as we saw in that particular matchup. It felt like neblime was going for swarming styles as opposed to a little bit more of a durable sort of style. And as a result, he wasn't really in a good position to punish the Shambler. The Shambler appropriately adjusted his composition to deal with swarms. He was just so underfed, like so poor in terms of resources, that it was really hard for him to do much there. So he scouted out the Hydra. That looks like he lost a worker. And he's going to go ahead and lose another worker and turn it into a Hatcherosk. But he's gone Quazeth first, which is very interesting. So his first purchase is actually going to be a Nathracor, or a pair of Nathracors, I should say. He's going up against 2 Hydras, though, as well as an Iziracor. I think because the Quazeth was scouted by neblime, he expects some foul play. So off those Nathracors go, wiggling their way to the other side of the map. And otherwise, it's just Droleth. So I guess the Nats will end up being more scout-oriented and maybe try to keep the early military from neblime in his base. But at the same time, this is obviously rife for a counterattack now that the military units are out. So what is the play here from Shambler? And honestly, I feel like the play that neblime made in the last game to migrate the Kagrants with Oveleths, that was pretty cool. And one of the things that I want to see eventually is maybe we can even see that in something like ZVZ, where you need to like take your ramp or whatever. I mean, this map is not very favored for Z, it looks like, which is funny to say because obviously the Z player just won the last 3 games. But what I mean is like you look at it and it's really hard to get to either one of your ramps with Kagra, and that's just something that happens every now and then. But you can offset that manually using the Oveleths by like migrating them over to the ramp, at least right now. Like maybe when somebody tries this and watching this cast over historically, we've changed how that works or something. But here comes the Skittercore. It will obviously be zoned away by the 2 Nats as soon as Shambler wakes up. It looks like 1 worker will die because it won't be... No, it won't be. Okay, yeah, he's just going to get zoned away. A little bit of micro play coming out of Shambler trying to get those moving hits, and he is indeed adding a macro hatch since he scouted that from his opponent. One of the Nathracors is over here. I'm not sure that it has the vision to spot right over in this direction, but he's going to pull back anyway, so it feels like maybe it was the case. Does he have any more military units coming out? He's pretty much dedicating to Naths at this point. He's got more on the way, and his Natural obviously does need to worry about pulling them over and stuff. And for what it's worth, Nathracors have a stronger technically like a faster anti-air weapon than anti-ground, but they can still do a good amount of damage to anti-ground units. And you can see here that particular case is definitely true with the Iziracor falling. And here comes the Skittercore to join them. So Nathracors reigning supreme so far. There's even a Droleth that's been, moved over here. And it looks like, I don't think that was necessarily intentional, but it does seem like he'll just go ahead and drop like a Spraith or something, which would be pretty good. Now, bad focus from neblime here is going to allow those, well, I guess it was bad focus from both players, really. Definitely could have changed the calculus there. Here comes some more Nats that were elsewhere on the map. Going to force some burrows, not a bad shout. Needs to start building some Zeths, and it looks like he's going to. Maybe even some static defense of his own. His opponent does have a Hatcherosk. No, doesn't have the Hatcherosk started, actually. neblime, he's losing his cool a little bit. Here comes some Zeths. It feels like, oh man, that's going to be a Circuith? No, in that case, I would just be spamming out more Nats. So he doesn't have to worry as much now, I think. He can just sick the Nats onto them and do that there. No Droleth kills, really. I guess there was one Droleth kill from the one that was one of them that was attacking the Kagrant. But yeah, that's just going to be cleaned up instantaneously. And you have to favor Shambler. He's got his base actually operational. He's got more larvae at his disposal. And yeah, this Hatcherosk is only now being set up with some workers not efficiently mining at all. This is way less efficient than mining from your main base, like, more like going at more aggressively with the saturation. And obviously Shambler has way more military units as well. You don't want to necessarily go for, a balls to the wall attack right here, But I think he can, actually. And he's got enough larvae to, have defender's advantage in ZVZ, which you would probably never think of. However, he's going to scout the 4 Hydras. He's going to pull back all of his units. That's where I feel like he's going to make a bit of a mistake. Like, if he just attacked with most of his units here and then pulled back, some of the Zeths and Forvs or whatever, he would be just fine. But yeah, at the very least in this particular case, he's going to clean this up super easy. And now he can pull the trigger. And is he building more units in the background as far as military? It's all workers still, and still no static defense either. So it does feel like he's giving Neblime the opportunity to come back into the game a little bit by delaying his attack. At the same time, Neblime has been building a lot of workers, it looks like, because he's still training workers even now. This feels like a huge missed connection here for Neblime, where he definitely should have recognized that my opponent has way more military units than I do. I need to build military units just to stave off his assault. I've essentially misplayed elsewhere by delaying my expansion for a long time and not having a super successful attack. This is just GG as far as I can tell. I don't see how he's going to be able to pull this off. He has to fight with his workers, but he's already low on workers. His Hydras are out of position. He didn't scout the middle of the map to spot out where his opponent was coming in from. And, okay, that Spraith did end up wiping out all the Nats, but, yeah, there's just nothing there. And Neblime will go down, which means Shambler is on the board. Now, that's a ZVZ that did have a little bit more back and forth to it. It obviously did end pretty quickly, but I liked the idea that, Shambler was able to hold, and he used Quazeth to do it. So maybe not as, written off. Quazeth got written off a lot, and I feel like now it makes a bit more sense. So I'm glad to see that as the case in that particular match, at least. So let's go on to the last game of the set and close this cast over out with a bang. We are back. Neblime is Zerg. Shambler is Protoss. Tactical lag U69. Well, I guess that's probably his password to jump into his computer, so if you guys ever find yourself wherever Shambler is in the world, you can just type that in. Tactical lag U69. I guess his username is probably that. So there is a pause, but I'm sure it's fine. And no worries there. Nobody got married or anything. Instead of saying that, obviously it's the idea, of course, is I ended some of the podcasts and such with "Don't die," and now I'll say I don't want to say don't get married, but it's get married. I don't know. A more positive thing. I mean, I guess don't die is pretty positive. I'm saying don't die. Come on, dude. Stay alive. Stay with us. Anyhow, we do indeed have Shambler going to go ahead and scout first. I'm assuming he's been random this entire time and has gotten Protoss at the end. So that's pretty nice. I wonder if, he said random isn't random at the beginning of the previous game. I wonder if Shambler was doing that as a mind game to make Neblime think, oh, he got Terran again, LOL. And in actuality, he had Zerg. But Neblime plays the same fucking opener every time. It goes Hatchrusk into Hydrith, either expansion or in-base hatch into expansion. One or one or the other comes first, but those are always steps 3 and 4. What you're going to get with Neblime. So it doesn't seem like it's going to make a huge change. But maybe if he thought he was a different race or something, he might try something different. I don't know. Maybe he would have tried a different opener because he's oh, Shambler's Terran again, LOL. I'll try to kill him with, Zorka's opener or something, and then he would have gotten surprised. Who knows what could have happened? Scribe obviously is not going to be able to get any kills, but it's disrupting a little bit of mining time. Just being annoying to your opponent, not really anything too huge. I got a second gateway being added. It's going to be some zealots in the early stages of the game. I think you can combat zealots pretty easily with Hydra Izzy, but we'll find out. Obviously, the zealot is moving quite fast now, thanks to the changes that were originally proposed by 3Crow as an idea to give it more movement speed while it had shields, and then I adjusted the stats to fit in that a little bit better so that they have less shields than they used to. But they also have more HP than they used to, and of course you have Ecclesiasts to keep them speedy boys. That being said, we do indeed have a Droleth that's going to probably migrate its way over to try to expand. Neblime is very low on resources right now, though, not banking whatsoever. He's going to go for some Skiths. And that's going to be effective at, bypassing a lot of what Shambler has. But is it going to be enough? I mean, he's building a second Ecclesiast. I think if you keep the number of Ecclesiasts to parity with the number of Skither cores, you probably can, stay relatively sane. And it looks like Neblime even recalled his Droleth, so that's a bit of a mistake, economically speaking. But yeah, right now he's definitely is going to be able to thwart this, and when he sees the Skither core, well, maybe when he sees a second Skither core, if he sees a second Skither core, that might be a signal for Shambler to start building, Dracodins or Hierophants or something. But we'll see what he ends up wanting to do. if he's going to leave his base, he's probably going to want to drop a Warden. And that's going to be, you know, another delay before he can comfortably exit. And actually, with the number of skiths that are being made here, it does feel like neblime is able to have kill pressure even on a Warden, right? So if Shambler ever really leaves his base without, you know, leaving behind a solid garrison of maybe like, you know, a Dracodin or two alongside the Warden, it does feel like neblime can counterattack and use the mobility of air units to his advantage. It will be a southbound expansion here for neblime, not going to be taking that north position instead. Maybe thinking that it's a bit more, you know, easy to defend in this particular context. You can just isolate your ramp for a little bit. And against Protoss, it feels to me like against Protoss, one of the things that you probably want, especially Gateway Protoss, is you want that Zorkish Shroud for the AoE, right? You can use Izira cores, and maybe that will work out if you don't mind spending a lot of your minerals on that. But particularly for area denial, not 100% sure if anything is better than the Lekizalisk. Scribe did end up going down to that Skither Core raid, but obviously it was all of the Ecclesiasts were spotted, and he's actually making even more. So he's going to go up to 9 Ecclesiasts here. It's a very, very gas-intensive play, but not a bad shout, right? And maybe he can even leave some of these by. He did spot that there were 4, count them, 4 Skither Cores. So that should be a pretty significant note. There is indeed the Circuith, like the proxy Circuith drop or whatever to guard the ramp using the Ovaleth, finding creative solutions to the problems. But again, this number of units, that Circuith is not going to be long for this world. I wonder if this is going to be one of those anticlimactic games where, like, you know, 5 minutes in or something, somebody ends up losing. The Drolets are even being pulled to try to help with this. I would be focusing down the Ecclesias since they have less armor. And do you instantaneously remorph that? Well, it's not instantaneous, I'll tell you that much. Indeed, some of the Ecclesias have ended up being picked off. It looks like maybe one Zealot may have died as well. Hard to tell. I don't see the corpse here, but that could mean anything. One Izira core is there, but it's also not long for this world. Now, Neblime does GG, but I feel like that was a bit preemptive. Because, okay, you lost one of your Hatcherosks, but you have the in-base hatch, and you actually have, like, even workers just about with your opponent. It's not like Shambler expanded behind this. This is a very, like, military-focused play. So, yeah, that was probably the weakest of the games that was in the set in terms of seeing, you know, Neblime's skill set or whatever. I guess if you're a Protoss player or a Zerg player, you might have some ideas. I mean, even looking at his playstyle, checking his Zerg playstyle versus Terran, okay, Shambler didn't play super well as Terran, you know, it being his weakest race. That's fine. It still should give you some idea of, like, what his weaknesses are. So, yeah, anyway, it's something that I feel like is pretty significant. You definitely can overwhelm him in the early stages of the game, as we saw in those last 2 matches. But to me, it just feels like Neblime wasn't actually out of that last match. He could have maybe held. But also, versus Gateway, it's really hard to make, you know, mass skith work. It's also really hard to, like, you just don't have the gas on, like, one base or whatever to make that happen. But it's also quite significant if you're just trying to make something happen in the context of holding the Zealots, right, and holding the Ecclesias. Like, if you had, like, Izira cores instead of Hydras there, I think he probably would have been able to pull it off, but he didn't even have that many Hydras to begin with. And yeah, it's just a lot of minerals, right? And he went for the Ovalith, which obviously delayed some other things, so you might be able to throw some critique at that, although I didn't mind the idea of putting the Circuith there, but it definitely meant that it was harder for his Drolets to come in and help because they had to travel longer distance, and, you know, harder for his other rallies to help and stuff, so who knows, you know, but I'm sure he'll have something to say in the comments section of the video, and maybe you do too, so leave a comment, you know, leave a like while you're there. I don't know how YouTube works anymore, but you can check me out on Instagram, which I don't have. You can join our Discord server, which we do have. And aside from that, I guess, yeah, like I said earlier, don't die. You know, that's a positive message to send to the kids these days. And, yeah, coffee.